You're welcome to Business Highlights on Trust TV, where I take you through some of the biggest economic and business developments of the week. My name is Chamun Dabeng, and I'll be your host. Well, Nigerians barely made it out of the dirty fuel saga that happened in February that resulted in damaged cars and long queues at fuel stations. Now, once again, Nigerians must face that same burden. Joining me in the studio today is political and economic analyst Joseph Ago. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, today we are going to be discussing a few issues revolving energy and business costs. Before we hear from our guest in the studio, we have a report taken from our news update this week, and it's on Nigerians speaking about the ongoing fuel scarcity. Let's take a look.
There's indication that the scarcity of petroleum products has resurfaced again. Motorists are seen in long queues trying to buy the product, which is proving difficult. More so, the impact of the scarcity is especially felt by commuters who pay high price to be transported from one place to another.
To me, this is totally unacceptable, but the fact that we don't even know what caused the scarcity, where the scarcity is coming from until now, we don't even know. How can someone wake up in the morning, driving to work, all of a sudden discovers that there's hold up everywhere in all the filling stations, even most filling stations that have fuel are not selling? That I do not know until now, but I'm sure, I'm very, very convinced that a whole lot of filling stations here in Abuja have fuel.
Traffic gridlocks appeared across major parts of Abuja as many service lanes were closed to traffic due to queues from the petroleum stations. Consumers of the product told Trust Television that they left their various houses in the early hours to queue up at the filling station to get the commodity, but to no avail as they are still in the queue waiting for their turn. Some consumers further revealed that they had to tip fuel attendants to be able to pile the product.
I feel very bad because what we are suffering in Nigeria because of fuel subsidy is very bad. We are really suffering a lot. To get a fuel for your working or what you are using a fuel for is very expensive for us in Nigeria. Whether is the citizen of Nigeria and whether is we don't have anything and we are the ones suffering most in Nigeria. It's very bad. We can't continue this. This country needs to be changed. We need to change. We need changing in the country because the country is really going very bad situation that the poor ones cannot even get anything. I come here selling in the morning, it's around 6 o'clock in the morning. This is now I'm going back. Even before I go back, I paid bribe before they give me this fare.
It's shocking to me that I just woke up yesterday evening to discover that we're experiencing scarcity. I don't know where it's coming from, but I think something really fast needs to be done.
They said this fuel scarcity will affect food prices in the market as transporting these food items is also expensive.
Most people slept here overnight and they are still not happy, and everybody have been talking their ordeal about the fuel scarcity presently going on in Abuja. In Abuja, Kabir Lowell, Trust TV News.
Well, thanks to Kabir for that report there. You know, it's really, I wouldn't really call it necessarily interesting or fascinating, but just listening to Nigerians talk about what they're going through, just weeks after the first fuel scarcity had ended, here we are again going through the same frustrations as before. Now, what do you think of the fact that this is happening so close to each other? And also the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria also said that this could possibly be one of the worst fuel scarcities that we're going to experience. Now, what do you think about that?
I think already it's becoming, it's already becoming the worst fuel scarcity we have seen in recent times. And I remember some time ago on this platform, I said that, the fact that the government is not really addressing the fundamentals in the petroleum sector, we would still come to that point where there will be fuel scarcity. So the government ignored certain fundamentals, a lot of fundamentals, and we are again witnessing fuel scarcity.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what are those fundamentals that you feel that the government has ignored in regards to the petroleum sector?
The first is, as a nation, our refining capacity. As much as Nigeria, we can't produce this much crude oil and we don't have refining going on in this nation. So it's very important that we address the issue of refining. The second is, the regulations within the oil sector. There are a number of regulations within the oil sector that needs to be addressed. Another point is the fact that NNPC is now the sole importer of petroleum product. That is an aberration. The market should be liberalized. We should get private investors importing petrol with NNPC regulating these imports. Another point is, of course, the fuel subsidy saga.
Yeah.
How many people were brought to book for the monies that they collected without supplying any petrol? So at the end of the day, there are lots of these issues that the government failed to address. And all of this is building up into what we see today, petrol scarcity.
All right, so one of the respondents in the report actually stated that, they don't really know what the reason for the fuel scarcity is. So far, there have been a few, about 2 different versions that have been coming out. So far, the ND, that is Mele Kyari, the MD of NNPC, has stated that there is enough fuel to go round, and the reason for the long queues is panic buying. He also stated that there were about 300 trucks of fuel that were scheduled to have already been brought in to the country. However, Nigerians are still yet to find some sort of relief from the situation. And the federal government has their own version of events, of course. IPMAN has their own also. So IPMAN is blaming the scarcity of fuel on unpaid bridging claims by the NMDPRA, which is worth 500 billion naira. Now let's take a look at an interview with the Vice President of IPMAN, Abubakar Megandi.
Well, just as you go around, you have seen most of the filling station there is no fuel, including even major marketers and even NNPC itself. Actually, the reason why you have been saying this thing is what we have been telling the government for a very long time. Because we independent petroleum marketers, we normally go to the private depots and buy the product and come and discharge inside our filling station and sell at the government's stipulated rate. But because of the non-payment of petroleum equalization fund, which has subjected most of our members to be in bankruptcy, that they cannot be able to purchase the product because they doesn't have the fund. The fund is already in the petroleum equalization. Right now, the marketers, petroleum equalization is owing marketers a tune of 500 billion naira. So actually, look at the 500 billion naira in the hands of the government. How do you expect the marketers to bring the products? The permanent solution, which we have been saying always, let our Nigerian refineries be in order. Because there is no way a country that is producing crude oil, and then be importing white oil. So if all our refineries are in order, definitely the problem will be less compared to the way the problem is now today. Then, even if we are depending on importation, the government should choose either full deregulation or they should be paying marketers their transportation fee.
Well, the federal government has since come out to dispute these claims coming from IPMAN, and they said that the agency has so far made a payment of 58 billion naira to oil marketers as bridging claims in the last 6 months, and out of that, 34 billion naira went directly to the members of IPMAN. Now, what do you think about these two versions of events? You have Mele Kyari saying, oh, there's enough fuel to go around. The only reason why we have this situation is because people are buying, are panic buying. Right. So rather than buying 10,000 naira worth of fuel, they end up buying 20,000 naira worth of fuel so that they can, keep away. And that's the reason why we're dealing with this situation. But IPMAN is saying, no, that's not it. You owe us money and we can't transport these products to the people. Now, what do you think about these two versions of events that have come out so far?
So I think I'll stand with IPMAN. And the government can say anything. And the government is just trying to be convenient here. I think this line was repeated by the government, I think, around
February.
I mean, so we're back to that point where the government is saying people are panic buying. I mean, this petrol scarcity, as far as I know, started since Saturday. And by Monday, the queues, it was like as if we didn't have any break from petrol scarcity. The queues just suddenly appeared. So I believe IPMAN more than the government. I mean, the IPMAN, I mean, they survive, I mean, around petrol business. So, but the government really doesn't, I mean, the petroleum industry is very opaque. The government can, I mean, NNPC has been running at a loss, I mean, it was running at a loss for so many years. So the government can afford all of these cracks within the system, but for a private business, I mean, these independent marketers, I mean, a debt can be very damaging to their business.
Yeah, because I did, talking to the vice president of IPMAN, he did, sort of highlight a lot of the challenges that many of them have been going through. There is the chairman for the Kano State chapter who did come out to say that, out of 100%, only a very small figure of their members are able to continue with their businesses. Many of them have had to shut down. Many of them had to, step away because they can't afford to transport the product. So that's the situation that they are dealing with. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's been two different versions of events, though our guest is standing with IPMAN on this one. Yes. So speaking on, listening to him, he did talk about the inclusion of IPMAN when it comes to the decisions made by the federal government and NNPC. Do you think that they need to be part of this decision-making processes as they are the marketers or, major marketers when it comes to petroleum?
Yeah, I think they are critical part of the petroleum industry. The major marketers, and of course, so many government agencies in the petroleum sector. So I think they're a very key part of the petroleum sector, and they should be consulted. I mean, their voices should be heard, and they should be part of that decision-making process.
All right. So as far as solutions go to, put a permanent end to this macroeconomic monster, because that's what it is. It literally touches on everything from industries to, your day-to-day life, to the cost of food, transportation. It's everywhere. It does affect everything. All right. So there are quite a few that, we could actually explore as a country, but we will get into that right after the break. So don't go anywhere. You're welcome back to Business Highlights on Trust TV. Once again, my name is Chamunda Beng, and I'm still here with political and economic analyst Joseph Agor. Well, just before the break, we were taking a look at the ongoing fuel scarcity. Now, during the interview that I had with the vice president of IPMAN, he did talk about permanent solutions, and he talked about our refineries, which, of course, has been an ongoing discussion. People saying, oh, we need to revive our refineries. We need to develop our own, refine our own crude oil within the country. And of course, it is a reasonable suggestion. But looking at the way that the rest of the world is going, we're now talking about energy transition. Does it really make sense to take billions of dollars or even trillions of dollars, to revive refineries or to start refining crude oil within the country itself when other countries are, doing other things? They're basically moving into the future. You have countries who are now moving with rechargeable cars. You have South Africa that just recently launched its a hydrogen-powered truck. And, these countries are moving forward. If we're still talking about having our own refineries, isn't it more of a step back rather than us moving forward as a nation?
I think it's a step forward. You can't build something on nothing. It will be biting if we decide to jettison the idea of revamping our refineries and moving straight into renewable or green energy, we'll be biting more than what we can chew. I'll give an example or an instance here. The ongoing Ukraine war has made Ukraine, stop delivering gas to a large part of Europe, especially countries that they feel enabling the Ukrainians. That's the Ukraine challenge against Russia. And one of those countries is Germany. So what Germany is currently doing is Germany is transitioning from gas to coal. Now, coal is a very crude form of power or energy generation. So, but Germany has to survive. So they are moving from a cleaner source of energy like gas and going back to coal that they closed down several decades ago. So for Nigeria at this point, we can afford green energy. That's the truth. So we should first take that immediate step of, bringing efficiency in the petroleum sector and delivering the goods for, petrol. There are so many components in the petroleum sector. We don't benefit from from any component of crude oil. So we first need to sort that out. Then in the future, let's say 20 years down the road, we can now start thinking of green energy. By then, there would have been a lot of advancements in green energy. Solar energy, for example, we know is at best alternative energy, but you can't drive production or productivity with green energy.
Well, the thing is, you're talking about 20 years down the line. The truth about it is that we have a situation right now. Even when you take a look at access to electricity within the country, over 40% of Nigerians are off the grid when it comes to actually having electricity in their homes. Over 40%. That's the figure that we have today. A lot of businesses, a lot of industries, a lot of factories have been affected by the lack of proper electricity within the country. And we know that these solutions that we're talking about, that's renewable energy. You talked about solar powers. We have the windmills. We have so many other options that we could actually explore. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be on a large scale. Does it?
Yeah, no. Of course, I think some time ago I talked around energy, and I said we really need to develop an energy plan for our nation, and solar is very critical to that. But the problem is how much of research, how much investment has gone into solar energy in Nigeria. For example, one very key component in solar energy is the battery. And currently that technology is open source. Some decades, more than 20, about 20 years ago, Nissan, Tesla, Nissan, Toyota, and major car manufacturers decided to make open all the advances, all the advancements in battery production. Samsung, for example, and all those other phone manufacturers also keyed into that entire project because they see electric cars or battery-powered cars as the future. So, but they can afford to do that because they don't currently have an energy crisis. But we currently have an energy crisis, and we really need to sort it out with the resources that we have in abundance. And the resource that we have in abundance is, petrol and gas.
But we have wind in abundance. We have sunlight in abundance. Those things are like, we're in the equator line. Yeah, but there's a lot of sun here.
But we have all of those in abundance. But these other two, petrol and gas, they are cheap. They are cheaper compared to those. How many people can afford solar energy in their homes? But everybody that I know can afford petrol. Barring petrol scarcity. So it's very important that we really look at what we have and fully utilize that. Then, in another 2 decades, we can consider by the time there is no dark part of Nigeria without electricity, then we can now look into renewable or green energy.
But even in the next, considering the situation that we're in right now, considering the fact that we're even, or should I say the country is overly dependent on crude oil itself, even within the next 20 years, do you really see that coming to fruition?
I mean, Nigeria, if Nigeria decides to wake up, we can, cover a lot in a very short time. But the problem is, it seems that we're still asleep. I mean, we can make giant strides in a very short time because we have all that it takes to, accelerate progress in our nation. But the question, with politics, it looks, with all that is going on, it looks like that dream is far-fetched. But if we're serious enough, we can be energy dependent in, I can say in 10 years, we can be energy dependent. We would have covered a lot in that our plan in, let's say, 5 years. But I think self-interest or politicking is, the reason why we are where we are as a nation.
All right, I like the fact that he said politicking. All right, so I spoke to an economist, Dr. Emeka Okengo, and he had some comments to make on renewable energy or different energy sources out there. So let's take a look at that.
That's another paradox. Okay, this is us. We burn, flare on a yearly basis 2 billion cubic feet of gas, and we import a fraction of that from Russia or Ukraine. Okay. This is us wanting to cry about, oh, energy is a major problem. And then you have these telecommunication companies that say to you, we are running our own generators. And we are here in this country, diesel moved from 350 naira to 800 naira. There are very few people who can run their diesel generators for more than 1 hour. Because what it technically means is that for you to be able to use that machine or equipment for 10 hours, you're going to be burning about 60,000 naira. Who does that? All right? Yeah. Now, again, instead of now saying government to do, we should also be now looking at solutions. This is us who live in the equator. Look at me and you sweating like as if we're melting. In fact, we're actually melting. And everybody sees, one of the cheapest, and least protected technologies now are the solar energies, the solar technologies. It's everywhere. They have even taken it to the level of hybrid. In fact, they have even taken it to another level of what we call the hydrogen, fuel cells. All these things come from sun. Little, let me not call them little. South Korea has developed this technology to the extent that, please Google hydrogen, fuel cells. They are running their heavy trucks on hydrogen cells. Cheap, renewable, easy. Maybe that base infrastructure you need to start might be expensive, but thereafter, when you now start running the circuits, you find out that they come to you a little or nothing. So why are we now having this challenge of high cost of energy? It is because we are using the wrong, kind of energy. Why should we be burning diesel, okay, when we can use, CNG, which is a compressed natural gas? Why would we be burning diesel when we can use solar? All right? Why would we be burning diesel when there are so many other protocols where we can use when we can even use OTEC? Now, what does OTEC mean? Ocean, thematic energy conversion. Look at us, 800 kilometers of coastal, line. Look at us with the sea. Everybody is going into the sea to go and generate tap thermal energy. We don't have one in Nigeria. And a lot of these, plants you talk about here are running on this diesel. So if we were to be running, in fact, banks are not even able to operate on 24, their normal 8 hours, because of this running on it. So what would have happened if there was a defined, deliberate policy for government to be able to now start looking at renewables, especially from those who've been able to now, develop these energies? And trust me, we have a lot of these things, already acquired or developed within our own systems. You go to Naseni and see what I've done there, you'll be shocked. I know, because I've had reasons to want to interact, with the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology.
All right, there he is talking about the different sources out there that we could actually explore. And the thing about, moving into or exploring these opportunities or exploring renewable energy sources is the fact that it's not just only a solution, but it also presents an opportunity for many people within this country. So is it really reasonable, the fact that we're not really touching on it? I mean, at least CNG is something that we have that's available. So why is it something that we're not exploring?
I think the problem here is it looks like successive governments have failed in tackling the problems in the petroleum sector. Then we're just trying to move from that. Instead of trying to solve the problem, we're trying to move from that and explore green energy. If we don't address these sitting problems in the petroleum sector, I mean, what is the guarantee that when we begin to explore green energy, we'll still not have all of these problems? So I think it's, there's what they call the Nigerian factor. I mean, everything seems to work out there, but when
it's actually brought here, it's a different situation.
It becomes a challenge. So it's very important that we sit down and use the petroleum sector as an exercise to really solve a lot of the problems that we face as a nation. I mean, accountability is one, lack of transparency is another, competence is another, the fact that there seems to be the mixture of politics and economics is another. So there are a lot of problems that we need to, that we'll see when we look at the petroleum sector, and we need to sit down as a nation and really tackle that. Until then, we'll just be playing the ostrich, moving into green energy. I mean, we have gas, we flare gas. I mean, there are countries in Europe that their energy requirement is 85% gas. And those nations don't have as much natural gas as we have as a nation. But, I mean, we don't use, gas for anything. We just flare it and import gas and sell in small cylinders. I mean, gas should be, at this point, supplied into people's homes. I mean, gas should be readily available. It would have taken a lot of pressure from people exploring other energy sources. So, I mean, would have saved a lot of trees from our forests and so on and so forth. But if we quickly, as a nation, move into green energy, we'll just be,
it's basically like trying to change the carpets in a building with a leaking roof. They'll still end up being destroyed. I completely understand what you're saying. We do need to fix the fundamental issues that we're facing before we can think about moving into something that is more sustainable, something that has more ground and presents more opportunities for the country. So that much I do agree with. All right, so unfortunately we have run out of time and we need to wrap up the show right now. But I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph, for being a part of the show. And to our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Unfortunately, we were not able to completely finish. There were some other aspects that we had wanted to touch on, but hopefully we'll get to that next week. But anyway, like I said, we've come to the end of our show, and my name is Chamun Dabeng. Please do come back again next weekend. Let's do this again.